6:30. Let's start. Greetings. I am Martin DeCad. I am the co-chair of the Waterfront Parks and Environment. We have a brand spanking newbie as a co-chair, and she will introduce herself. Leslie will introduce herself in a second. She's going to be the next person to speak after I'm finished with whatever the blazes I'm saying now. I want to spend a minute telling you what I think the agenda should be tonight, since we don't have any particular items. Leslie and I spoke last week, and since we didn't have any items, we thought that it would be a good idea for us to reintroduce ourselves to each other, and then to talk about, and in that introduction, for you to give some issues that you are concerned with, and a little bit of the background of why you are on the meeting, or what your interests are. And the second part of tonight's discussion, I hope, will be about what the priorities of this committee will be for the next year, or you choose a time frame, because sometimes we are very opportunist. We have to deal with what comes down. We have to deal with what we face. Something comes down and we have to deal with it no matter what our priorities are. But we have the luxury tonight to talk about what we think is important in the area of waterfront, parks, and environment. And if that is okay with you, thank you. I got a couple of thumbs up. David's sort of spaced out, but that's all right. That's him. Thank you, sir. Two. I'm going to go according to who I see on my screen for introductions, with the exception that I'd like to introduce Leslie Murphy, who is going to be our co-chair and is going to help set priorities, and who has her own passions about the environment. And then at the end, I will say more about what my priorities are. I'm going to try and keep account of what of the issues that you raise. Leslie, you're on.
Thank you, Marty. Guys, I'm really happy to be named by Jeffrey as the co-chair of WPE. Many of you know me, and many of you know that environment is on the top of my priority list when it comes to issues to work on in our district. But I know there's a lot of new members, so I'm just going to do a really quick intro, because some people who don't know me, I've lived in Hell's Kitchen. I'm on the northern part of Hell's Kitchen, and I've lived here for just about 18 years with my husband, and I have a young daughter. And before I became a full-time mom, well, I guess while I became a full-time mom, I was actually a journalist for a very, very long time. That was my career. So this is kind of a natural fit. I'm good at taking notes. I'm good at researching. I'm good at asking questions, and also demanding accountability, which kind of goes right into this community board stuff. So, I hope to be a good listener. So tell me and Marty anything you guys want to put on the agenda, or whatever you think is important, and we will definitely research it and get it up for discussion. So like I said, please come to me anytime with any ideas, but I really love working on the community board, and you guys know I love working on this committee with you guys. So thank you so much.
I'm going to push you, Leslie. It was a lovely introduction. Thank you very much. One thing you didn't say is, do you have a priority of your own that we should be working on?
I do.
I don't know. Do you? I do.
Oh.
I mean, I will say this at the end. I think the most important thing on our plate right now is the shore power stuff for the cruise lines, but I don't know what your priorities are, and I'm making a list.
So I don't think I have one specific. I mean, yes, I mean, shore power has been my thing for a few years now. When I started working on it, but I do have to say, in talking to Jeffrey about WPE, we have a great relationship with parks. As you guys know, we have a great relationship with the Hudson River Park Trust. I would like to see a little more environmental bent, a little more discussions about environmental topics in this committee. I don't think we can avoid it anymore. I think we should go like full blast environment, and see what type of good letters, recommendations, and advocacy we can do. So if no one is opposed to that, I would really like to kind of churn up the environmental part of WPE.
Thank you. I'm going to warn Gwen, who is on my screen next, and then I'm going to tell people while she's thinking about what she's going to say. I'm going to say that Tina is next on my screen, Candace after that. Then I see Leslie, but she spoke already, and I'll say more when I see after I hear you folks. Gwen, you're on. Finding that unmute button is a real pain in the butt.
Who are we going to? Gwen first, Marty?
Yeah.
Gwen, go ahead.
Mute button, Gwen. Mute. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted. I wish the hosts could unmute.
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm not ready yet. I'm fooling with the volume on this thing, and I'm having trouble hearing.
Right now, you're loud and clear. Do you want me to come back at you, or do you want to say who you are and what your main issue is?
Well, it's still not very loud, but I'm Gwen Billig, and you wanted to know what my issues were. I also am. We have environment in the name, and I think it's name only lately. And but the other thing that bothers me is that I've worked in other harbors, and this one, is they seem to ignore all the regulations about what can be put where and that kind of thing. And that's I've got to get that. I'd like to get that figured out. It may just be my thing, though.
I'm going to take, I wrote you down as you have a harbor focus, and your interest is learning more about what the regulations are and how they are enforced.
I know most of them, but
I know you
anyway, they don't pay
don't.
any attention to them, but I don't know why.
One of the things, Gwen, that I know you're very good at is those regulations. I think the rest of the committee doesn't really know what they are. So that may be something that we should have you think about, and maybe tell us about it at some point. Not tonight.
Okay.
Unless there's one main one that you want us to focus on.
Yeah.
One what?
One main harbor issue that you want us to focus on.
Why don't you put regulatory authority or something like that?
Done. Thank you. Tina.
Helicopters, helicopters, helicopters.
You got to say something about yourself. I'll
Yeah.
put down the helicopters.
Okay, I'm a documentary filmmaker, social issue, and I live on West 26 between 6th and 7th.
By helicopters, I think you're saying, get the damn heliport out of here.
Out of here. Out of here.
Good issue. It's not on my list of issues, and it should be. Candace, did I say you were next? And after Candace will be Marinol. Is that how you pronounce your name? I'm doing it right? Candace?
Yes, you did. My name is Candace. I'm on 30th Street. Brand new to the board. I chose water parks and environment because I'm a runner, so I'm like to go up and down the river. I use it frequently. I've from starting here, getting to know the Hudson River Park Trust and getting to see what they do for us and what the Parks Department does for us. I have to kind of agree with the shore power. The last presentation we had, I was very interested in how that could be something that the West Side could give back to the community in a way. So I would be interested on to see how we could approve that and hopefully generate some power, some shore power for us. Another concern I had, I don't know if this would be the place I would bring this up with, but it would be the trees. We have a lot of construction in my area, and some of the older trees are getting knocked down, and we actually had the built one right in front of my building got cut down, and it's like, what happens next now? Like, we just lost this great big tree because of a container that was back, just ran right into it. So that would be something I would be interested in learning more, I guess, about the Parks Department and how they actually help us like on the city streets. So
Absolutely is something that we've talked about in the past. Thank you.
thank you.
After you, Marinelle, Alan.
Hi, everyone. I am Renal Vikram. I'm relatively new to the community board and to the committee. I joined in May of last year. I live in Chelsea, the southern part of Chelsea. I'm also on the Chelsea Land Use Committee. Why WPE? I mean, just to break that down. I mean, obviously not everybody is lucky enough to have a waterfront. I mean, we do. And I just think that we do a tremendous job. I mean, of having that waterfront and making good use of it. There are parts of it obviously that can be improved, but as a community board, I mean, just sitting back and watching you guys and the relationships that you've forged with, including the Hudson River Park, I think it's just tremendous. The work that everybody's doing and obviously the expertise that people on the community board bring to every meeting. So it's been a great learning experience. Then as far as parks go, and obviously, this realization's come to, I mean, I've always been a big user of parks. I also bike everywhere. But, especially during the pandemic, you kind of noticed if you were not close to one, and if you were close to one and it wasn't well camped, then you definitely noticed it more during the pandemic than you did before, because you were out and about more. So the need for parks and their upkeep is more now than it's ever been. As far as environment is concerned, I'm totally on board as far as renewable power is concerned, but also to me, environment also means just everything that's around you. So dealing with all kinds of pollution, be land pollution or noise or light pollution. All of that is part of environment, and I would like to see the committee. And I know there've been some conversations where we've decided, well, maybe this is not our area. Maybe we should defer to the transportation guys or another committee on the board. But I think that we should definitely put environment front and center for the agenda. So I'm totally on board with Leslie on that. Regarding one priority, I would like to see more greener spaces in general in the city. I think there are parts that have a lot of trees, and then there are other parts that are much less so. So there's some disparity between neighborhoods. So just evening that out to some extent, but also, like I said, the E of WPE, we kind of need to be a little bit more forceful about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How about you, Alan?
Good evening, Alan Oster here. Longtime Chelsea resident, right around the corner from the famous Empire Diner. I'll echo Tina about helicopters for sure. Primarily a parks person, and I think using parks to both enhance our environment and also use parks in different ways for education and our young people, how to appreciate what we have, what we can do. I think that somewhere down the road, once we start to move on the heliport, which is my priority at this point, use some of that space as a learning center. They already have a garden center that they use for composting. And Hudson River Park Trust does a terrific job in reaching out to our public schools and bringing kids in to learn about the waterfront, learn about environment. And I think we can do a lot more in our local parks. Push Parks Department to bring rangers in, bring educators in, teach not just young folks, not just kids, but adults also about what an asset it is, and how we all need to take care of what we have. I think as was stated, I think Leslie put it right. We don't do enough on this committee to push environment. And the waterfront, actually, if anybody has picked up on it, there's a lot of talk about using ferry service to bring packages through, get trucks off our streets. But I think that's something we need to look at as we go into environment, as that's going to affect the air we breathe, as well as congestion and everything else. So it's all a conglomeration. I think we all have our own special ideas and focuses, and I think bringing them all together, we can create some really good policy and initiatives for the city and our district. So thank you, Leslie. Thank you for coming on board and being with Marty, and we're looking forward to some good stuff. Let's do good stuff. Make good trouble, as they say. Good trouble.
Good trouble.
Thank you.
Thank you. You remind me, for the newer members who weren't here, of the discussion that we had about bringing concrete to our district through the waterfront.
Right. Why that didn't happen is a scam, let me tell you. I think Brad would agree with me on that one. Okay, thank you.
It didn't. Say the one word about why it didn't happen. One sentence. No, you're muted. You're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Politics and the power structure in the city. I'll say no more.
I just saw a building go up on 28th Street, and the constant flow of cement trucks that went into it reminded me of that discussion that we had that didn't go anywhere. On my thank you, Alan. On my screen, I have David next, and then Jennifer.
Okay, hi, I'm Dave Holoka, and I'm an architect. Been a New Yorker since 1984 and worked in architecture in the private sector until the 90s when I switched over to the public side, and retired a few years ago after a 10-year stint at the New York Public Library. I'm also on the Chelsea Land Use Committee, where most often I'm involved in issues having to do with historic preservation. I consider myself a preservationist, and I find it's really a pleasure and a privilege to be on the Waterfront Parks and Environment Committee, and to see all the creativity that's presented to us and to have an opportunity to weigh in on it. I am also a bicyclist, and when I was a daily commuter on the West Side bike path in 2008, I was actually a plaintiff in a lawsuit against the helipad because it was like getting gassed going to work every day. I read about the lawsuit, called up the lawyer who was spearheading it, and he said, you could be a plaintiff. And it's really frustrating that all this time later, nothing has happened. And my understanding is that the 1999 act that created the park actually forbade the use of the helipad. So we haven't gotten very far on that. I love the idea of being more about the environment in general, things like air quality. I'm fascinated by what other cities are doing. Barcelona has a super block system where they're starting to close traffic on individual streets, and the streets themselves become more park-like. I don't know if you know, but there was a time when major streets in New York were actually under the purview of the Parks Department, like 72nd Street at one time.
Park Avenue.
Yeah, I'm interested in, where that might go. The Barcelona idea is actually a New York idea. It dates to a plan by Paul and Percival Goodman from 1960 for a car-free Manhattan. And I just feel like wealthy people have too much influence in New York over things that have to do with the environment. And here in Chelsea along the High Line, all these condos are going up that have underground parking because rich people can't go anywhere but by car. And there's supposed to be a limit on the ratio of parking spaces to units, but they find a way of getting around that all the time. And I'm sure that the helipad likewise serves people who get around that way because they're rich as well as tourists. So I tend to weigh in a lot on issues that are more architectural. The buildings within the parks, although I'll always defer to Brad for construction expertise. Everyone knows contractors know more about construction than architects do. And one thing that alarms me a little bit is privatization within the Hudson River Park. I think it's probably a good thing that Google is in Pier 57 and helping to fund the wonderful things that are being done there. And they're effectively in interior space anyway, but I was quite bothered when the trust proposed perhaps building an office tower at Pier 76 to help fund improvements that need to be done there. I think that that's kind of like burning your furniture in the fireplace to stay warm. It's not a sustainable idea. And there were tons of ideas to put moneymakers in Central Park that were turned down over the years. To me, it just seems like it's the opposite of the idea of a park, but I don't know, who knows, maybe Google at Pier 57 could hold the door open to looking at it in a different way. So I'm a little bit on the fence about that. So that's my deal.
Thank you, sir. I heard architect and preservation, bicycle concerns. I heard a seconding of the helipad, the environment in general, and superblocks. And finally, privatization. A good set of issues. Is the one that you would emphasize above the others?
I think environment and maybe doing something actually in the streets, taking our purview out of just the parks.
Thank you. Jennifer, did I warn you that you were next? And Sally's next after you? And Roberta.
You did warn me. Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Cook. I am fairly new to Chelsea, almost a year here. I was in Brooklyn before, so I moved over during the pandemic and new to the community board as well. My interests were just to, one, get involved in my new neighborhood, and then I also have environmental interests, so that's why I wanted to be on this committee. It's been really interesting this past year just to learn a little bit more about how it works, to get to tour Pier 57 and see what they're doing out there. And just, I'm also a walker, so I'll walk through the park a lot. And I live pretty close to Chelsea Waterside Park, which is undergoing renovations right now. So it's just interesting to see it all happening. And I'd like to contribute as much as I'm able this next year. I think that the helipad would be what I would put as priority as well. And then shore power also seems to be pretty important and something that could really affect air quality for a lot of people. So that's one of my priorities too.
You give me the opportunity to mention to the committee that Leslie and I were part of a conversation the other day about the closing of the dog runs in the Chelsea Waterside Parks. They're being closed this week, I think, and will be closed until next summer. one of the things that happens on committees like ours is that there are meetings outside of the meetings. So I was going to share that with you at one point tonight anyway, but Jennifer, you raised it. You raised the environment. You said you were a walker and you were concerned with shore power as well. I missed one?
The helipad too.
Got it.
Like there's helicopters all the time when I'm walking, all the time.
Noisy.
Yeah.
Sally, then Roberta, and then.
There was that one at 2 a.m. last night.
Great, it's good for sleeping. White noise. I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Sally Greenspan, and congratulations, Leslie. Martin and Leslie are going to be a great team. I'm so glad that you're going to be spearheading this. And I'm really glad to hear that there are so many people on this committee that that want to champion some environmental issues. I am right there with you on the helicopters and the shore power. I had made a few suggestions last year on other things I'd like to see tackled on the environment and how it affects us in New York. I think that we don't do enough on the environmental end, and I'm really glad to see that a lot of people want to beef up those initiatives. I'm also a park person. I've been a community activist for many, many years. And in fact, I was the principal community leader in getting a new park built in Chelsea on 20th Street about 3 years ago. It opened about 3 years ago. It took us 10 years to make that happen. And Corey Johnson was the leading elected official that helped us push that through. But we now have a new green space in Chelsea. And I agree we need more new green spaces in a lot of places. And I love everything we do, the parks. And what else? I guess that's it. I'm looking forward to an active year. Oh, also like David, I'm into preservation. David is on the board of Save Chelsea. I served on that board for a number of years, and it continues to be a passion of mine, saving some of our historic structures. So that's about it.
Thank you, Sally. I heard shore power, parks, preservation, and the need of new green space, and then echo the helicopter and the general statement.
Yeah, I have a list. I don't know. I mean, I have a list of initiatives that I've thought about from before. You know, I don't know if this is the format to go into all of those. I mean, helicopters we've been after for a long time. And the shore power also, but there are other things that we can be doing. Like I don't understand. I'd like an education seminar, for example, on permeable pavement. I don't know if our city, all the repaving that we're doing on sidewalks and streets are using permeable materials, but we have a tremendous problem with, wastewater and runoff. I don't think we're using everything we can to fight these things. I mean, there's many issues that we need to be involved with and can be involved in, and at least get discussions going about what we can and what we can't do. So I just don't want to focus on those. We've been at them for a long time, helicopters and shore power, and hopefully one of these days we'll win one of those. But there's a lot more that we can be doing.
Thank you for that. I hope you'll send me your list. It is my intention, when it's my turn to say stuff about what we're doing, to share a list that I have that I put together. And listening to this conversation, my list is woefully inadequate, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. And if you send me your list, I will merge them and share it with our entire group, so that we can see the incredible amount of environmental issues that face this community. That's why I wanted to have a conversation about priorities, because there is no way that any one group can handle all of those, and yet we must be aware that the list is there. And so I would like to use your list with your permission and merge it with mine. Send
Absolutely.
it to me.
Okay.
And also, Sally, I mean, I have a very big list too. I mean, I think we all have very specific, I mean, I can go on about public bathrooms, in parks. I can go on about charging stations. I can go on about, there's a ton of stuff, like little things that as we get into this year, we can ask, speakers to come in and educate ourselves on. Local law 154 is coming down the pike, where all buildings have to be all electric. So there's a lot of like specific
There's a
things,
lot.
but I
So
think
maybe,
generally-
Not-
so maybe, I don't know how to, I'm sure you've been thinking about this a lot. But maybe there's a way that we can get all our thoughts into one place with you and Martin, for example, and then we can share it rather than spending all the time when we're talking here. If we can share it in an email, maybe prioritize things we'd like to hear about and have guests that are knowledgeable on those topics come in and talk to us. And then maybe we can figure out where we have the best mileage, where we can maybe really have an impact. Some of the issues that concern me or any of us may be impossible. Others may be easier to tackle once they're on the table, and we know what we can and we can't do. But yeah, we all put together a list and we can vote on things that we think about.
Thank you very much for that. You have gone exactly where I was hoping to go tonight. And at the end of tonight's meeting, I'm going to ask Leslie and you and whoever else to send me your list, and I will put them out on a table and try to put them into a single document and share it with all of you. Berta, and then Chris.
Sure. Just to give you a little bit about me, I am a lifelong New Yorker, have lived in Chelsea for the past 5 years. Up until recently, I was a public servant and have focused on affordable housing issues throughout my career. And that has intersected with sustainability and equity, and parks to me are my happy place. They've given a lot to me, my mental health, my happiness. They're a form of leisure, walking, and also biking, both for leisure, commuting, running errands, all that sort of stuff. So I'm really grateful to be here to talk a little bit more about issues that I think are significant or important. I think leaning into the environmental piece of the WPE designation, it makes a great deal of sense. I don't think I'm saying anything particularly controversial or unpopular there. I would also highlight in particular a focus on air quality, because relative to community districts in the vicinity, Hell's Kitchen in particular, or Community District 4 has relatively higher rates of childhood asthma, which is more and more research we are seeing that shows that air quality has such profound impacts on public health and longevity for all people. So I think that that's a place that makes a great deal of sense as something that I hope that we care a great deal about. In that vein, this is small and somewhat tractable, but anything that we can do to ban the use of gas-powered park maintenance devices, as well as, if possible, not just by parks, but also other staff. So that includes vehicles, but I think the biggest issue is leaf blowers, lawn mowers, and other such devices, I think are important. Some municipalities have put together outright bans. I think there's a bill in the state legislature that would make a ban statewide, but you can read about the emissions there, just compared even to cars. It's absolutely wild. So I think that should be a priority. I think it's very doable. So I'm hopeful about that. And I guess a final thing that I would like to just focus on would be equity and accessibility of parks, ensuring that, I think the biggest park in the district or the largest park space in the area is often limitedly accessible, either during bad weather for people who are limitedly mobile, and certain spaces can be a little exclusionary. So improving access to all people who wish to visit the park, whether that be through better biking infrastructure, pedestrian infrastructure, connecting the park with the larger island of Manhattan. Those things I think are particularly important. and obviously supportive of shore power and helicopters, all of the core issues there.
Thank you. I'm just grabbing now because I can't, the richness of this conversation is overpowering me, which is a good thing. I heard you specifically mention air quality and a concern with childhood asthma. You didn't say, although you came close to saying, that Chelsea Clinton has the third worst air quality in the city. That's stuff that we've learned over the years, and it has remained true. Gas-powered maintenance equipment and mobility issues, access for all people, are the three that I pulled out from what you said. How did I do?
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Sally, you spoke. Chris, you're up. Or
Thank you, co-chair. How's it going? Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year to you, Chris.
Thank you very
Put
much.
some light on
So
you.
lovely to
Shine the light.
Well, I was doing a garbage cleanup with Katie Savage a little bit earlier, had dinner and jumped on this call. So I'm actually on a sidewalk right now, freezing myself off a little bit. So
You're in the community, man.
yeah. So hi, everybody. My name is Christopher LeBron. I'm a 31-year resident of Hell's Kitchen. I was born in 1984 here, raised on 47th Street between 8th and 9th here in Hell's Kitchen. My background originally was in marketing and advertising, and as of late, I found myself working either for local campaigns or in City Hall itself. I don't want to talk any more about myself. I want to talk about what's been going on in Chelsea and Hell's Kitchen and what I think the priorities are. Clean air, clean air, clean air. That's number one. I think from the water all the way to 8th Avenue, we have lungs that cannot breathe. I grew up with childhood asthma. My sister did too. My father did, who was also raised in the neighborhood. My mother does as well. My grandparents developed asthma as adults here in the neighborhood, and it desperately needs to be addressed. If we're going to talk about shore power or plugging in at all for any electric vehicles, I want to make sure those plug-in opportunities are connected to a renewable grid. We cannot fork the bill over to other communities where there are coal power plants. We need to make sure that the state and Con Ed are doing right by everybody here. And I'm saying that as a Latino. Thirdly, one action that I think we can all take here is we can walk our communities, both Chelsea and Hell's Kitchen, and identify open air parking lots and say, hey, to the city and state, we want parks. We're starved of green space in Hell's Kitchen. We have the least amount of park space per capita over here. And I think it's enough, generationally, we've seen enough towers go up and been prioritized for development over green space. So, and in conjunction with that, Dave, you're absolutely right. The Barcelona plan is something that we need to get on as fast as possible. And I'm glad that I've collected 1,000 signatures so far to create what would be an original park space over on Restaurant Row. I'm desperately asking that this board take priority in identifying places where we have prioritized car culture in the past and give ourselves some passive or non-passive recreational space for the people in this community. When I look at the parking lot over at the Intrepid, I think to myself, you know what, this is an absolute waste. We're asking people to drive to a park and to go to a museum when we should be enjoying it first. There's a whole bunch on my list. I'll gladly share it with both co-chairs. I'm just really excited to continue my service on this committee. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. I heard you say clean air, renewable grid, and green space, green space, green space.
Oh yeah, we got a lot of parking lots over here, Martine, and they should be parks.
I am looking at two people who haven't spoken. Alice Wong, I'm going to ask you to go first, and then Brad Pescarella. I hope that I am not missing somebody. If I am, let me know. Alice, you're next.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. My name is Alice Wong. I am a member of the Chelsea community on the north side, and I am a new member of this community board and also to the committee. WPE was my first choice to be on the committee, and it's because I live so close to the waterfront, but also because I've taken advantage of it during the COVID times, and I've seen a lot of improvements and changes made and how invaluable it is to have green space available. as I do my walks along the waterfront, I've actually noticed that there is not as much emphasis on recycling. And if there is, people don't pay attention to it. So I would like to suggest one maybe easy fix for Hudson River Park is when you have the recycling bins, could you put that in different languages so at least people will understand when it's green, when it's trash, when it's landfill, when it's cans, just something I think is relatively easy that they can help along. My other thing I would like to do is I realize we do have compost available. I would like for us to be able to have more around our entire district. So that way there are more places for us to drop off and pick up. And for example, to have more of the green markets, kind of like Union Square has it, so that we can have more in our area as well, to have local produce and to be able to connect more with our community. So those are my areas I would like to suggest.
Thank you very much and welcome to the committee, Alice. I heard you say recycling, and particularly your focus was on the collection of bins. I would like to add for the committee's entertainment that recycling doesn't stop when it's collected. We need to know where it goes and how it's used. A lot of the stuff that goes into recycling bins, as you probably all know, goes to the landfill and not to reuse or remanufacture. And that's something that we need to learn more about. Compost and kitchen scraps is a big issue for me because Penn South is ready to do it, but the sanitation department isn't ready to collect it.
Alice, I particularly like your idea of green markets. A few years ago, we were looking up here in North House Kitchen for, they're like little green markets where like sometimes, you just get like half a block and some people put out their produce or something. We were looking for like a really hefty big green market where they can come and do like grass-fed meats or all organic stuff. I love the idea of like a really healthy go-to green market space.
And actually there is one now at Hudson Yards when the weather is nice and it's very, very convenient to get to. I do feel that it's a very particular niche in that area. So the prices are not necessarily friendly. And I understand that their reasoning to make it niche, but I would like to see more of these that are more oriented to, the regular mom and pops that need to shop for their families. And the rest of us who would like to be able to afford healthy, fresh produce without having to pay an astronomical fee that went into perhaps the marketing just to get people there, make it more grassroots.
One note on the Hudson Yards Farmers Market, I do think some of the participants are wholesalers and not actually farmers, but the down-to-earth farmers markets in Hell's Kitchen in Chelsea, I think are wonderful resources, and working to make sure that they come back year over year because they're not guaranteed certainly should be a priority there.
And another idea would be to have maybe CSAs come and talk to us about how they operate and then be able to get that information out to the community. Thank you.
Down to Earth Market is on 23rd Street and 8th Avenue, 9th Avenue, and they'll be happy to come to talk to us. I know that for sure. So, but they may not be the only ones we want to hear from. Thank you, Alice. That's a nice list. Brad, I think you're last, sir, but not least.
Good evening, everybody. Leslie, congratulations. You're there with a good chair and Martin.
Thank you,
Brad, I thought I would warrant a face on camera today.
Well, I was going to say that I need to get a new picture this year that looks more like Chris. That's going to be one of my goals. I live in Chelsea. I'm a construction manager and owner's rep. That's what I've been doing my whole career. I want to remind, after being on this board for a while, sometimes we're thinking broad strokes, but reality is we were going after that toe pound, and then we had a chair of our board, and then he became chair, and the juice got there, and now we have a big open space. So I know it gets annoying when we bring up helipad, especially to me, because I'm a drone guy, and I think we're looking at it wrong. But I think it's important to remind people that we still have to keep hammering at it, because that's the only way it gets done, and that really affects our citizens around us. So I think that's important. My other thing is, as Chris was saying, I got two things. We're dealing with congestion pricing, and that is the complete opposite, because once they get the tax, we're never going to get rid of vehicles. It's not going to happen. And so, I've been saying that for years, and once they get that money, it's not ever going away. So either can we get it updated to say that, 6 months out of the year, these avenues are closed every weekend, and then we can start programming it and looking in a different way. But I think that, to me, is a big priority. Number two for me is, I'm quite tired of hearing that there is no way to get renewable energy on the Hudson. I just find that to be ridiculous. And my third item is, we talked about it, I think 2 months ago. It's one of the reasons why I joined the board. And at the time, Corey said, you can't bring it up, is the animal waste. And to me, that is an environmental issue. And that, if we could be the board that helped put in a pilot program, I think we would really help engage our citizens, that live here, because we all deal with it, especially in our neighborhoods. And I would like to try to adjust that in some way. I'm glad to meet all the new members. And I don't come from a happy place a lot of times. I'm more angry. So you'll get to know. Sorry.
Brad,
Thank you.
I have two questions. Thank you for that. Would you restate your first one? I didn't catch it. I have the other two, and I have a question about one of them.
My first point was just to keep in mind, sometimes we got to aim small, miss small, right? Be very, very specific, right? What's worked in our neighborhood is pilot programs. So a lot of times, if we focus on saying we want to be the first, and then when we had Senator Schumer on, he sincerely said to our board, I'm giving you billions of dollars. And for me to sit here, as David was saying, that this park has got to be supplemented by commercial, I think can be changed. And I think, like, if they took some money in and put it in escrow, the interest alone would help pay for the maintenance of the park.
Is there a particular pilot program that you want to shepherd?
Well, I think a pilot program for sure would be in one of our parks to put, and Gwen's been saying it for years, we could have some micro wind producing power, no doubt, for our charging stations. I mean, we could be very, very specific and small. I think there's no doubt we could do that on one level. As far as a solution on the dogs, there's got to be a way not to cause confrontation, but to have people issue tickets and try to help solve the problem. And what we really discussed was education. We love dogs. We want people to have their dogs. And maybe some people really don't know what curb your dog means. And I think, some type of educational format on that could be interesting. And the third one is congestion pricing and what it does. I believe we should take over the streets. There's no doubt in my mind. And they're going to go around, they get the tax and not taken away, Martin. So I don't know how to tackle that. I know Jeffrey has some real ideas from running a bid and the successful closing of streets did for the meatpacking. And I think there's no doubt that we have leadership there that could help guide us, to at least the pilot program, saying we're taking 9th Avenue. On Restaurant Row, we want to turn into trees down the middle and deliveries at night, or deliveries early in the morning, some type of program that way.
Thank you. You added congestion pricing in the second go round. You made clear that by animal waste, you weren't talking about the animal waste that occurs in kitchens. You were talking about the shit that goes on the street. I meant that term to be descriptive rather than angry. I'm right, aren't I?
Yes. Educational program on Curb Your Dog, pilot program to close down some roads. Let's call it Chris's idea on Restaurant Row. And the third thing is a pilot program, wind, let's call it micro wind, to put in charging stations on the west side.
And the fourth thing to remind you was renewable energy on the Hudson.
Yeah.
We had a presentation in which we were told basically that we couldn't do it on the Hudson, and I was not comfortable with that response at all. I don't know how.
Well, I did really well by bringing that expert to us, and he was horrendous. That was great.
No, he wasn't horrendous. He was
I'm
informative.
just making a joke. He didn't have an
And thank you for bringing him. I just thought his answer was wrong, and you did too.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to Tina, who wants to say something.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on something Brad was saying. Maybe something very simple to start with an educational and a reminder when people are out on the street with their dogs is to put something on the kiosks. You know that the LED lights, and they have different messages all the time. You know, the ones that replace the telephones. I think we should push for some educational little snippets to go on those kiosks. I think it'd be very simple, easy, cost effective.
Tina, I'm thinking more because, you make documentaries, there should be a public service announcement, but could be funny. And, that really hits New Yorkers, that could go viral, and that it really could translate a little bit more. That's one simple idea. Martin, though, I don't want to forget that, I would like to speak to the state senator more about what funding can be done and put in a pool of money instead of having commercial and not parks for the Hudson River Park Trust. So, I think that is a real political move, and they've got billions of dollars. And why can't it go to the park to sustain it and not have to come in this maintenance revenue over and over? And that's why we have the helipad, So I think those three things for me can be accomplished.
Thank you, Brad. We have an amazing list of stuff that you have just generated, plus the list that Leslie and Sally are going to send to me, that I will put it into a single list of topics. I want to know, Janine, did you get my email that contains my list of stuff?
Did you send it right before the meeting?
I sent it just during the meeting.
During the meeting,
Because
yes, I have.
I don't see chat, so I would have put it in chat. I wonder if you could put it up on the screen.
Yep, that's fine. Give me 1 second.
And so what I did was put together for myself an environmental statement. It's got a lot more words in it than you're going to see. I have an outline that I hope you're going to see of a bunch of environmental issues that don't include all the issues that you raised. And I want to give you a sense of what I've been thinking about. Can you go to the top of that? Okay. So I've got waste, air, water, ground contamination, and energy, and subheadings in each of them. It's all about environment. It's not about parks. Several of you raised issues about parks that should be included in our list of priorities. I can say something about any one of those items if you ask me a question. That wasn't my purpose. My purpose in showing you this was to give you a sense of a large list of stuff that, even without listening to the great conversation I just heard, we have, that we need to be putting in front of ourselves as we go along, and that we need to prioritize because we can't do it all.
Well, Marty, I think I think you and I can talk also about prioritizing and then setting agendas, and then each member can kind of email us on what they think is urgent, or they would want to see on the next agenda. And I think that would be easier. And I just want to make a comment. We do have some people in the public that are listening, and there's someone, Janine, that has his hand raised. So I don't know if this would be the time, Marty, or if you want to wait till after maybe people comment on your list.
No, I think the committee, every member of the committee has had a chance to speak, and if there's somebody from the public who wants to speak, that person should.
Sorry, I'm bringing Arnold over. You should be able to speak soon.
So while he's coming over, I want to say the list that's on your screen.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
hang on a second, Arnold, and then you go. Thanks for being here. Good to see you at least in blank.
Yes, okay, I'm not sure if you see my image here. Oops, okay, I have.
Hang on a second. This list took a while for me to put together. The conversation that we just had will make the list longer. And there is stuff to say about all of it. I have a document. If anybody wants to see the document that goes around this list, I'll be very happy to share it with you. Send me your email and I'll send it to you. In the meantime, you're sending me, in addition to what you spoke tonight, ideas for a larger list than this. Mr. Bob, you're on, sir.
Yeah, I invited tonight a friend of mine, Rabbi Reeve Brenner, who creates inclusive play spaces. And we really don't have any inclusive play spaces for adults in Community Board 4. And Rabbi Brenner is here to talk a bit about that, because we've talked about everything here, a lot of things here, but we really haven't talked about active recreation in our parks, especially active recreation that's inclusive for everyone. So you see Rabbi Brenner on the screen, also on the participants. Marty?
I'm sorry, Arnold, I heard part of what you said. It faded in and out.
You see, my friend Rabbi Brenner is here also. Hopefully he's raised his hand. Do you see another guy, Paul or Rabbi Brenner? Do you see another person on the Zoom?
Oh, yeah, I see Mr. Brenner. I'm promoting him over.
Why don't you go over to him now, and he will talk a bit about inclusivity in our parks.
We need to keep it short since we're not doing presentations on any one of the issues that we've raised. We're just raising issues so that we can put them in priority.
Okay, but it's a new okay, but
Arnold, you have spoken to the committee before, and your conversation with us is an important one. I don't want to stop it, but it's not appropriate for a large conversation tonight.
Okay, but is it appropriate to add to the list of things to talk about inclusivity in our parks and Community Board 4? And how do we get that on the agenda?
You're absolutely correct. Let's tag it.
Janine, do you mind going to like the screen again, to remove the list so we can see?
Stop share.
Thanks so much.
I'm sorry, you mean to stop sharing?
Yes, please.
Is that okay for now until because I see there are a few other people from the public who want to speak as well.
Okay. So I was trying to move over Dr. Reeve Brenner, but I asked him to move over, but he didn't. But I'm allowing him to speak if he wants to. And then there's Catherine and Katie.
Okay, let's see if we're okay. Okay, I think we're on.
Am I on now? Am I being heard? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Dr. Brenner.
I'm being heard. So you heard I'm a rabbi, so I don't know what it means to be short. I don't understand. But I'm pleased.
For us, it means less than 2 minutes.
2 minutes is plenty of time. I'm just calling to your attention the Bank Shot Basketball Award, Design Award in Brooklyn, where they're building these. Now, Betsy Head Park provides, and so does Build the Sea Park in Brooklyn, and so in Queens. These bank shot courts, which I've designed, are beginning to take place. There are hundreds of them all over the country. And I'll ask you to indulge me. I'm a man nearly 90 years old, so I don't do too much with computers. Any of you near a computer, please look into the word bank shot, like going to the bank, bankshot.com, and you'll see the award given to Bank Shot, the design award for the year 2021, just last September, for that year for this park in Brooklyn. And we want to have you look at, we'll put on the list as you suggested, we want you to have a look at perhaps putting a bank shot court in your community for the sake of the differently able, the disabled kids, especially kids who are using a wheelchair. The autistic community uses it. Here in Rockville, Maryland, where I live, busloads of kids come. And by the way, you don't have to put it on asphalt. It goes very nicely on grass. but I ask you all to please take a look at bankshot.com and see the award that was bestowed upon the play court, the Bankshot play court in Brooklyn at Betsy Head Park. So that's what I invite you to do. And I think you're conducting the meeting very well. All I would suggest to do is that it's good to hear from once in a while to get from the people in the outlier places before the committee puts its input. That way you hear and from us on the outside, and then some year you can do it that way and another year can do it another way. I think it's good to hear from the outliers like myself, but thank you for listening in. I appreciate it. Have a good year, all of you.
Thank you for your comments, and we will take a look at bankshot.com. We don't have any other hands that are up, do we?
Yes, we have a few. Catherine has her hand up and she was brought over, and Katie as well.
Okay, Catherine, you're first.
Maybe they'll
Hi,
let me talk.
this is Catherine. I appreciate all that you do, the whole committee. I've been listening to this meeting and just feel really passionate about every single topic that you said. So I really appreciate you being on this board and helping out. I live on 47th Street between 9 and 10. And I have a few notes because I'm involved with many of the community boards because I'm the ambassador for pickleball. But David Halawaka, you were talking about closing off the streets, and Kevin O'Keefe on Community Board 6 has already started doing that project, and you might want to connect with him because I helped him block off the street next to St. Barton on 36, and they do that on weekends now. And they give it to the children and pickleball players, and they do children's programs, and the kids are involved, and it's a really community involved project. So he has also, in that same mindset, started something over there. I would like to see, I wanted to know what the update is. I'm very much an environmentalist. On 10th Avenue between 46 and 47, there's that empty space there. Like I do attend the garden on 48th Street, but what is happening with that vacant lot there? That was the first question, because that could be used for so many things. And I don't know if there was a planned project already in place for a garden or, whatever. And the other question was, what is the update on the repaving of Hell's Kitchen Park on 10th Avenue as well?
I don't have, does anybody have, I don't have answers on any of those.
Because I know at the last meeting, I asked the same question of community report, and they said they would get back to me, but nobody has. And then I talked to William Castro, and he said that it might be insurance, but nobody can really give me a clear answer. And is there something being done with that vacant lot that's on 10th Avenue?
I can only have somebody look into it. I don't know what the status of the vacant, what side of the street on 10th Avenue is it on, the west side?
It's on the west side, and I really agree with Chris LeBron that says that we really need more green space and more just environmental stuff. But I appreciate everything all of you have done.
Marty, is that the space across from the park?
Yes.
That's the DEP site. Yes.
Well,
I can actually update.
There's a park going in there, isn't there?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. I don't know.
Yeah, they're working on it. Yeah,
That's the
the
DEP
plans
site.
are out.
We've seen designs. No, they're at the bid stage. The design is finished.
I didn't know. That's why I'm asking, because I'm begging for parks.
Yeah,
So
that's gonna
what
be
they,
a passive recreation park.
right,
Okay,
what
how
they
about
did
the,
was, it's gonna be like a paver park, because they have to get to all of their chambers underneath. But we really fought them back, and they came back with a really good design a few times, so it's coming.
Oh, excellent, excellent. And what about the repaving of Hell's Kitchen Park?
No update there. We should ask Jordan, who's the new community liaison for CB4 at Eric Botcher's office, what's going on there, or Jesse Bodine. But to follow up again on DEP, yes, we've reviewed and voted on and sent letters with regard to green space there, but it seems as if because the park and the affordable housing portion of that park are tied together, we may not see any change or development for another 2, 3, or 4 years.
On which of this is, which?
The DEP site, 48th Street and 10th Avenue, and
Oh.
49th Street and 10th Avenue.
Oh, okay.
I
They're
just wanted
putting
to, I just wanted to
bathrooms
add, I'm sorry, I just wanted to
in the
add that we
actual
had.
building.
Let Janine speak. Go ahead, Janine.
Thanks. No, I just wanted to add that they attended our land use meeting yesterday. So if you go onto our YouTube page, or you can view what the presentation that they shared with us yesterday.
Yes, and I actually think, Catherine, to follow up what Janine said, they're actually going into certification, right, Janine, this year on that, on DEP site.
Yes.
So
Okay,
hopefully we'll
thank
know
you.
sooner rather than later.
And I also agree with the man who was talking about the dogs, because I just, you know, I was walking down 48th Street with my dog, and it was just disgusting. And you really have to ticket the people, because I play in the parks. I love the parks. I rode my bike in the parks. The park saved me during the pandemic. I'm always in one park or another, and I've spoken to the dog owners, and they don't really care unless you ticket them. There's big signs that the Parks Department put in, no pets, big signs. And they just don't even care. They just don't. I'm sad to say, because I'm a dog lover.
Thank you, Catherine. Katie?
Hello, I'm Katie Savage. I run the Hell's Kitchen Litter Legion. I had to clean up this afternoon. Chris was there. Following up on what was said about recycling, Marty, if you're interested in where the recycling goes, the Sanitation Foundation, which is the official nonprofit of the Department of Sanitation, is actually launching an interactive game on the 20th called Follow Your Waste, where they basically show you what happens once sanitation comes and picks up your garbage, where it goes, what happens to it. It's meant to be an educational tool, not just for children, but also for adults. So that is launching on January 20th, and I think that is a really cool thing. Maybe Sanitation Foundation could come to present and talk about what happens with our recycling. I mean, I know a lot of it too, but they're the more official people to do it. And also in regards to recycling, Hudson River Park does not currently, they have recycling bins, but the bags in their recycling bins and the bags in their garbage bins are exactly the same. When the workers take them out, it all goes into the same pile. So though they have the recycling bins, they're not actually recycling. Usually this is because a lot of garbage ends up getting put into the recycling bins instead, and they're not having the workers separated out, which is really not that complicated. I literally just pulled cans out of garbage bins on the street. It's not hard. If I can do it, the workers can do it. They're getting paid. That's a really big issue, because they have a whole thing about park over plastic. If they're not actually recycling, you know, we should ask them why. They have the resources. They're not like a public litter basket or public recycling bin on, you know, 8th Avenue, where sanitation can't go through and sort it. But they have the workers, the manpower. They can quickly sort these things out so it actually gets recycled.
Thank you, Katie. You help us in two ways. We should know where recycling is supposed to go and how it's supposed to get there. And it feels like Follow Your Waste will help explain that. The other side of that is the one incident that you're talking about, where recyclables are commingled with garbage, is multiplied many times over, so that when the recyclables are actually collected and they're not clean loads, that is, that they're not purely recyclables, they have to either be separated or they get thrown out. And that's the kind of stuff I was referring to that we should be knowing about. So there are two things to learn: where it should go and where it does go.
Yeah, and with that also, all of New York City's recycling goes to Sims Municipal Recycling Facility in Brooklyn. And they might be able to, I did a virtual tour with them. It's like the Willy Wonka of trash. It's amazing how they sort everything out. So they might, you know, be able to know how contaminated is really contaminated.
It's that is a very nice idea that should be on our list of stuff to do. I've done it also. I've seen MRF's material recovery facilities, and they are absolutely fascinating, but they're not the end of the story either. Let me go to whoever the next person is. Is there a next person? Am I missing somebody?
That was all for the attendees, but I see Alan has his hand raised.
I see Alan's hand.
Thank you. Two quick things, but I first wanted to thank Dr. Brenner for, I just had a flashback of the days a while back. I used to swim at Betsy Head Park in Brooklyn. So thank you, Dr. Brenner. Two quick things. One, recycling. You know, there used to be a recycling center on, I think it was on 11th Avenue in the 50s, where folks would bring cans and bottles. And I think that got closed down. There's a building there probably at this point. But if you're, there's a whole underground collection thing going on. I don't know if anybody's noticed, people bring these large bags of cans and bottles to a designated area, then a truck pulls up, and these folks are paid by the bag. I'm assuming that the cans and the bottles wind up where they're supposed to be in terms of being recycled. So I was thinking perhaps if we break this down to the block associations, maybe Katie, I'm sure we can get a handle on this real quick, and maybe get the block associations to work with their residents about not just putting all the recyclables in one place, but maybe let's try to get the cans out in a separate bag. A lot of them don't collect bottles. So I think maybe the bottles are something else, but if we could maybe encourage people to put cans out separately that folks can take, they can make a few bucks out of it, and the stuff winds up where it's probably supposed to wind up. Another quick item, helicopters. Some folks might know there are two bills up in Albany now, one from Hoylman, one for Godfrey. They're pretty much similar. They're in committee now. I can give you the numbers if you want to take a look at them. They're pretty similar, giving people access to sue helicopters for making life miserable for us, and also reconfirming that the heliport should, if it remains there, is for emergency use and for some forms of construction if they need to be. But they're two very interesting bills, and hopefully that pushes the lever. So I guess I'll send the numbers out to Marty and he can distribute to everybody if you want to take a look at them. Thank you.
The name of the organization that you were thinking about is We Can, and they were the ones that were collecting cans by folks who had collected them from the street. The Daily News many years ago had an article called The $35 Day, which was about folks collecting cans and making their living that way. Tina, I think you're next.
Yeah, just a comment.
Take your hand down if you would.
So just a comment on the heliport. Gail Brewer actually helped put together a task force about the heliport. And I think maybe we should see if we can maybe have somebody from that task force do a short presentation for us and an update in terms of their strategies to get these bills passed.
Leslie, we have our work cut out for us because putting this kind of a list together and at least in a preliminary way, deciding what the priorities for our committee should be, and then feeding it back to the committee so that they can say that we're crazy or not crazy. They agree or don't agree would have been a nicer way to put it.
And I think Brad also has made a good point. I think as we go through the months, we should be very specific. Not to just bring people on just to talk about stuff. We should be specific with our asks, or specific with our project, that pertain to our district.
Not just a person to give us education, but a person to tell us something about something that we want to be doing.
I agree.
Thank you for a rich conversation, everybody.
Oh, Roberta, go ahead. Roberta can end us off.
My bad.
I just wanted to, I know we talked about compost. I wanted to highlight specifically sanitation's current pilot program for these unattended swipe bins. There's currently one going on in Lower Manhattan and another in Astoria. They have not been extended yet, but we should have more details in the coming months. I'd like to put that on the radar. I know that we've talked about getting more compost into the interior part of the district as opposed to just being in the park. And I did want to just highlight that for everybody here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other final comments from anybody? So.
Yeah, it's Gwen.
Go ahead, Gwen.
I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that there is another heliport now that is on approximately 34th Street and the East River.
Great, just what Manhattan needs. Don't take me seriously. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for a first meeting of the year and for a rich conversation about the things that we should be thinking about, send your suggestions to both Leslie and to me. We will try to put together a list that gets some kind of priorities. I wrote down much of what you said, and I'm overwhelmed by it. And thank you for the ideas.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Someone has to adjourn. Someone has to.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Chris.
I thank you very much. Good night, everybody. The meeting is adjourned. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Make 2022 worthwhile.